across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 hours of news, views and topical debate. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 03 44499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. That's 0344 499 1000. Give me a call. It's good to talk on Talk. It is Monday, November the 10th. Here's what's coming up. The £545,000 a year Director General Tim Davie has gone. The 430,000 quid a year Head of News Deborah Turness has gone. Both in disgrace. Both clearly told that their desperate game was up. The Panorama Donald debacle was the final straw, following a non-stop procession of crises, scandals and self-made shambles. Trump now, as I predicted he would, suing the BBC for $1 billion no less, which frankly, for disgracefully twisting the truth about his 2021 January the 6th Capitol Hill speech, the publicly funded calamitous corporation thoroughly deserves. Then the unedifying spectacle of groupthink BBC lifers insisting that Davie's defenestration was the result of a concerted right-wing campaign to undermine the state broadcaster. Veteran BBC bubble boys like Today host Nick Robinson and the 125-year-old World Affairs editor that time forgot John Simpson, lamenting the alleged capitulation to dark forces that mean RTB harm. Deborah Turness was running a ridiculously biased news operation that was making an average of 2 serious mistakes every week in its astonishingly anti-Israel, pro-Palestine coverage of the Gaza war. She also signed off on that dodgy Gaza documentary narrated by a Hamas boy. That and so much war is why she had to walk the plank, right? 03 44499 1000. And as for disastrous Davie, how many more massive balls-ups was he going to be allowed to preside over? Lineker's tweets culminating in the anti-Semitic one. The hopeless mishandling of pedo news anchor Hugh Edwards. The Gaza documentary that failed to mention the host was the son of a Hamas government minister, Bob Villan. And death to the IDF at Glastonbury. The Greg Wallace and John Turode MasterChef mess. Strictly Come Dancing unravelling amid a show-wrecking bullying storm. I mean, come on. Come on. The game really was up, wasn't it? While Simpson witters on about Davie being an excellent Director General, those of us who have to pay for the prejudiced, catastrophe-prone Beeb look at this guy and conclude that for 5 years at the corporation's helm, he was utterly useless. A joke figure who couldn't get a damn thing right. He hasn't fallen on his sword because of a right-wing conspiracy. He's thrown in the towel because he'd run out of road. In the end, terrible Tim had to take responsibility, had to take the blame, and had to collect his P45. About time, eh? 0344 499 1000. In other news, the police force getting sued for its alleged institutional favouritism towards the LGBT community, and yet another one in, one out migrant that we dispatched back to France, deported under this brilliant scheme, has gone back to Calais and come back to Britain on an illegal boat. That's the second one to do this. What a joke. Meanwhile, more than 2,100 migrants have crossed the Channel officially in 4 days. from Thursday until Sunday. Not sure what the score was today. I understand the weather was worse, but in 4 days of mill pond conditions on the channel, more than 2,000 illegal migrants crossed the channel. So trust me, folks, while all this goes on about the BBC, while all the other big stories continue to unfold, there is always the migrant crisis about which this government is doing nothing, about which it is incapable to do anything, because it won't do anything of any resolve. It won't leave the ECHR, it won't start deporting asylum seekers, it won't stop putting them in 4-star hotels, giving them free food, giving them 50 quid a week, giving them free doctors, giving them free dentists, giving them free lawyers. It won't stop doing any of that. So the migrant crisis will continue apace, and indeed has been, over 4 days of disaster on the English Channel yet again. 0344 499 1000. And finally, royal guru Kinsey Schofield on the latest news from Planet Sussex. What Harry and Meghan did next. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together, and let's go straight over to our international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good evening, Kev. Well, is it a full hour of BBC or?
No, I've got one story to let you off. Apart from that, yeah, the story that we need to do towards the end of the hour is just mentioned in my monologue. You wouldn't believe it. You couldn't make this up. A second migrant under the one-in, one-out scheme that we deported to France has gone back to Calais and come back across the channel in an illegal small boat. So it's happened again. Meanwhile, in 4 days, from Thursday until Sunday, 2,160 migrants came across the channel illegally. So never forget, the migrant crisis continues apace, but we'll talk about that later. First off, well, look, let's start to get to grips with what's happened. I mean, Tim Davie and Deborah Turnis have gone. What I'm finding astonishing is listening to and reading the tweets of people like Nick Robinson and John Simpson, who put their defenestration, their departure, down to just one thing: a right-wing conspiracy to undermine the BBC. Nothing else. Not the long procession of non-stop mistakes they've both been making for 5 years, or in Davie's case, 5 years. Don't forget Deborah Turnis, who presided over a kind of frighteningly biased anti-Israel BBC newsroom. She was Tim Davie's very special appointment. So that disastrous duo have gone. But this idea by The Guardian, by Nick Robinson, by John Timpson, oh, you know, they shouldn't have gone. This is a capitulation to the forces of darkness, you know, who mean the BBC harm. Don't be ridiculous. In the end, there has to be accountability. Tim Davie, as I said to you last week, he's been like the Keystone Cop Director General. Nothing has gone right for him. Time after time, scandal after crisis after scandal, every single one of them he hopelessly mishandled. We can't go on like this. He had to go, not because of a right-wing conspiracy, but because he's useless.
I mean, I'm like you, I'm astonished by how many apparently serious figures seem to think that this is all some kind of extraordinary plot, in some way led by Trump, followed by Nigel Farage somewhere in the wings, as if that's what it is, as if this is pure politics rather than actually going to the heart of what the point of the BBC is, its core offer, which is supposed to be unimpeachable, impartial journalism. But we all know that for a very long time that hasn't been the case. And yes, I mean, it's glorious in a way for those of us that have long felt the BBC bias to have such an example now that they can't talk their way out of this one. There it is, absolutely there for all to see. But we all know that it's much broader than that, and that is why you know, those on the right who have felt themselves the victims of this bias over a long period of time are so rightly jumping on this and saying, here, you know, now can you see it, people? Now can you see what we've been talking about all this time?
And if nothing else, you're absolutely right. This is a weird paranoia by these people. Oh, it's people out to get us. Us saying, well, look, you know, there is a thing outside of the BBC bubble in the real world. It's called accountability. If you make mistakes, you pay for them. If you keep on making them mistakes, you pay for them dearly. If you keep on making mistakes, you get sacked. You have to go, which is what's happened. I mean, technically, Davy and Turness have resigned, fallen on their swords, making a great thing about how, you know, I had to take responsibility, the buck stopped with me. Yeah, well, you haven't for the past 5 years. So excuse me if I don't fall over in wonder at your generous spirit. They've been forced to go, quite clearly. The BBC has said enough is enough. I would imagine the government, Keir Starmer and the gang, saying to the BBC governors, look, we've got a diplomatic incident here. The BBC has defamed the President of the United States, Britain's greatest ally. He is fuming. We need to throw him a bone. There you go, Donald. They've gone. It hasn't appeased him. Well, look, this is, I think I was talking to you at this stage last week, Isabel, and this is me with my crystal ball. Surely, for Tim Davie, as I say, the Keystone Cop Director General, who has just presided over scandal after crisis over scandal and on and on and on. You know, what are we talking about? We're talking about, well, the constant Gary Lineker tweets culminating in the anti-Semitic tweet that finally got him his marching orders. We're talking about Hugh Edwards, the lead anchor who turns out to be a paedophile. We're talking about the Gaza documentary that failed to tell viewers that the teenage narrator host was the son of a Hamas government official, the Deputy Agricultural Minister to be precise, and of course the horror, the debacle of Bob Villan at Glastonbury and his anti-Semitic chanting that they allowed to go on, death to the IDF. So all of that, and now this is the worst. This is the worst. This is twisting the truth about the President of the United States of America. I think he's going to sue Donald Trump. He's going to sue the BBC. And I do think, let me get both your opinions. I think Davy and possibly Head of News Deborah Turness have to go.
They need to go.
They have to go.
They need to go.
Yeah. So I suspect the BBC might be hearing from Mr. Trump's lawyers. Interesting times. Well, you know, this is your Uncle Kev, Isabel. I know what's going on. I predicted all this. I also predicted that, as you just saw, that was talking to you the last bit, by the way, that Donald Trump would sue. And we learned today he's fired off the legal letter of all legal letters to the BBC, calling for a full and effusive public apology, a full explanation of what happened here, and probably the most interesting tenet of his letter, $1 billion in damages. This is massive. This is a disaster for the BBC. And frankly, although it's going to cost us all money, licence fee payer money, if they have to pay Donald Trump a vast sum, they thoroughly deserve it. They really do.
They do, although, as you say, it's, you know, their money is our money. And I mean, this is showmanship, isn't it? I don't think Donald Trump is really going to go through with a lawsuit.
He is. He will.
You can't put anything past him. He
will, Isabel. He will. He'll take, I don't know, £200,000, £250,000, something like that. Just like he did with Paramount, CBS, 60 Minutes. They spliced together Kamala Harris to make her look a lot better and to make him look a lot worse. Similar kind of dispute about splicing and editing and doctoring. He sued them, I think, for $100 million, and he got $16.5 million. He will sue. They'll have to pay him. And frankly, I know that hits us in the pocket, but you know, that's the way of the world. You can all these debates. I'm listening to people like Emily Mateless and things going, what about him? You know, he's a liar too. What about all the lies he's told? doesn't matter.
Irrelevant.
What aboutery isn't in the game here? They doctored that speech that he made on January the 6th, 2021, to make it look as if he called on the crowd to get up there and fight, to cause trouble, to incite violence. He did nothing of the sort, and that is an open and shut libel case, and the BBC better get their checkbook out, because they cannot win this case.
Well, I also thought it was extraordinary that the chairman should call it an error of judgment. It wasn't an error of judgment. It was an actual calculation. You know, an error of judgment would be if you were just sort of weighing up, you know, maybe we'll do it this way, maybe we'll do it that way, you know, perhaps different lighting or something. That is massively understating what happened here. It was a conspiracy. It was an actual plot to make Donald Trump look much worse than he is, to completely misrepresent his position at that time. And I just don't think you can waft it away by calling it an error of judgment. It
wasn't an error of judgment. I mean, the interesting aspect of this is who actually did it. And it's possible that the bosses of Panorama didn't quite realise. It's possible. It may just be a left-wing editor, a Trump derangement syndrome executive lower down the ladder. Someone, that doesn't really matter in the end. Someone did it. That was not an error of judgment. That was deliberate doctoring to make Donald Trump look bad. Everybody knows what that was. And because Davey and Turnus have had to go, because they resigned yesterday, that's an inherent admission of guilt. So Samir Shah, I suspect, with that ludicrous, he didn't apologise to Donald Trump, massive great statement saying error of judgment. I think he has to go too. You know, the BBC has got to get real. These people who think that they're, you know, it's the poor old BBC, people are out to get it. No, they have made a fundamental, profound legal mistake here. And Samir Shah should have got real there. That statement alone may cost the BBC a lot of money, because any goodwill that Donald Trump was prepared to cut the BBC went with the wind this morning when Samir Shah issued that ludicrous statement. Error of judgment. We know what it was. Let's have a listen to Nigel Farage, who's basically quite rightly echoing what we're all thinking now. Well, I don't want to pay nearly £180 a year for these liars anymore. Have a look at this.
I'm going to defund the BBC from its current model, be in no doubt about that. The BBC, under our plans, would be slimmed down to something very relatively small, but most of it would move to a subscription model to compete in the open market. You know, do I want it to have a basic role for news and current affairs? Yes, but it's going to have to be very, very different to the way it is now.
And when, you know, it's another thing. When the BBC say, oh, these people, these right-wingers mean us wrong and all that, I don't mean the BBC any harm. I certainly don't want to put anybody out of work. I hope the BBC carries on and employs lots of people and they're able to pay their mortgages, you know, the way the cookie crumbles. I hope that carries on. But I attack the BBC. I don't mean it harm. I mean it... that I want it to change. I demand it. I don't see why I should pay for it anymore. If it's going to put out this biased, lying rubbish and put out terrible, terrible programmes, then it should learn to pay for itself. A subscription model or something. Then you'll find its programmes would become much better. Its dramas would improve. It might actually, if one time, produce a funny comedy because it would need to live on its wits. Right now, it gets £3.5 billion a year from us, the sucker licence fee payers, and that's what I want to end. So I don't mean it harm. I just mean its business model harm, which I think is destructive. It's unfair. Very bad for entrepreneurialism in the media industry generally. Just before we go to break, let's have a listen to Deborah Turnus, who quit yesterday. This was her talking this morning.
I would like to say it has been the privilege of my career to serve as the CEO of BBC News and to work with our brilliant team of journalists. I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider. Of course our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality, and I will stand by their journalism.
Is there institutional bias at the BBC?
There is no institutional bias. Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
But why weren't the mistakes dealt with on Trump, on anti-Semitism, on women's rights?
I'm sure that story will emerge.
Ha! Ha! You know, I mean, again, she's in denial. She's deluded. The truth is, everybody now thinks the BBC does have a biased newsroom. When she says it strives for impartiality, well, it doesn't when it comes to Gaza and Israel and Palestine. It's a joke when it comes to those topics. It is pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, to the extent that a lot of Jewish people will tell you they think it's anti-Semitic.
Well, I'd like to have a conversation when we come back about how awful it was over Brexit as well, because I'm among many people that really bear the scars of that, having been a very regular BBC contributor at that time. I mean, there is no doubt whatsoever about its pro-EU bias during those years, and it's not as if that subject has gone away in any shape or form.
Exactly right. Well, we will talk about that when we come back. So stick around, folks. Isabel and I will be back in just a little while.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. We're talking about the huge story of the day. Yesterday, of course, the Director General, 545 grand a year, and the head of news, Deborah Turnus, 431,000 pounds a year. Both stepped down, both resigned from their post. Tim Davie and Deborah Turnus gone. I was talking to you earlier about Nick Robinson and John Simpson and all these Emily Maitlis on that podcast of hers, The News Agents, in an utter rage. What about Donald Trump? What about Donald Trump? It doesn't change the fact, Emily, if I can just help you here for a little while, you sort of diffuse your righteous rage for a second, you little BBC person, you. It doesn't change the fact that Panorama doctored the speech that Donald Trump gave on January the 6th, 2021, to make it look as if he incited violence and told the crowd to go up to Capitol Hill and fight. Nothing changes that. So they can go on about, oh, Donald Trump's so awful, though. What about him? He lies and all that. They can say that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What we've got here is an open and shut libel. And the fact that the Director General and the head of news have resigned because of it, open and shut case, and Trump will sue them. He'll sue them. There's no doubt about it. You were talking earlier about the by the way, Nick Robinson, he sort of did this broadcast 6:30 this morning, talking about the BBC. He said, he said, Tim Davie and Deborah Turnus have gone. They both resigned. I have yet to hear them explain what it is they're supposed to have done wrong. Really?
Right.
Really? It's just... these people have got, what do you call it, Stockholm Syndrome or something. It's like they've been sort of brainwashed into a BBC worldview that will brook no common sense.
I do think that is what happens to people. I mean, I know Nick Robinson, I should declare that, and I think he is a very respectable and very serious journalist, actually. I recently had cause to have some issue with the way he'd done a particular interview, and he took it really seriously, and we had a good chat about it, and I think he really took it on board. So I want to just say that, but equally, I do think that people who are immersed in the BBC and have been for a long time, and some of these people are lifers. Nick Robinson actually isn't. He worked for ITV before. They cannot actually see outside the institution. I saw James Landale, the diplomatic editor, saying, amid all this guff, I just want to say how proud I am to work for the BBC. James, it isn't guff. That's the problem here, that you lot think it's guff. It's not guff. It goes to the heart of who you are and why we pay you to do what you do. And so many of them just seem to be in denial about this.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you were talking before the break about the way the BBC covered Brexit, the Remainer Brexit debate before the decisive vote by the British people. I mean, the BBC, subsequent to their coverage, did formally concede, it formally admitted that they were wrong. They got that wrong, and that they were disgracefully, I don't think they used the word disgracefully, but they admitted they were biased towards the Remainer cause. They admitted that. And that in itself, it's quite a thing. The biggest issue of recent times in Britain, the state broadcaster admits that it was biased on one side of the argument. That's not good enough, is it?
And it got worse, Kev. It wasn't just that they were biased up until the referendum. It was the years that followed. I cannot tell you the number of times that I found myself on flagship political programmes like Question Time and Any Question as the only Brexiteer voice, with a whole panel of other people all baying and sneering and howling, and you'd have whole audiences packed with Remainers, Ramonas, anti-Brexiteers. It was brutal. I can't tell you how it felt so often to be the only voice on those panels, while people heckled and jeered at me. And, on the other hand, yes, I was lucky because I was regularly platformed because they needed to provide some form of balance. But it was, if this was a seesaw, this was a very, very unbalanced seesaw with me practically falling off one end of it.
Yeah.
And so many other Brexiteers had that experience too. And I think that poisoned the debate. I really do. And I think it continues to warp the debate. And this stuff, it's so profound because the BBC does have such a massive influence over our public life, over public institutions, and over our politics. And this is the most serious BBC row since the dodgy dossier, the Iraq war, all of that. And that's a very long time ago. This is absolutely goes to the foundations of the BBC. And we've heard Nigel Farage say today that he will fundamentally change the whole way that the BBC is funded and set up. I don't think anyone at the BBC should be in any doubt that he means that when he says it.
Exactly right. We need change at that organisation. As I say, I don't mean the BBC harm. I don't mean any of the staff harm. I hope that the BBC can carry on and be a successful broadcaster and everybody keeps their jobs, and that's what I wish. But I don't wish to pay for it anymore. I don't see why we should be giving this organisation nearly £180 a year. It's a tip to go up again soon. For what? For lies in its newsroom. It just lies and tells lies about Israel, tells lies about Donald Trump. It is a biased newsroom now. It has lost its trustworthiness. No one really trusts it. So why would I pay for that? I mean, BBC Arabic, don't get me started. What is that all about? BBC Arabic is basically the Islam news, totally biased towards Palestine and against Israel. So all of this, plus the fact they don't seem really very often to put out decent dramas anymore. The comedy is non-existent. They can't even get light entertainment shows right anymore. I mean, The Traitor's pretty successful, got to concede that. Thank God, because they've managed to wreck Strictly Come Dancing by allowing it to get enmeshed in a bullying row. They made a right mess of MasterChef, didn't they, with John Turode and Greg Wallace having to go. Glastonbury, they screwed that right up. Hugh Edwards, they screwed that up. Also, of course, the long-running Gary Lineker mess. Don't forget, here's the joke of it. This is the BBC. Why is Tim Davie came in on the back of a guy having to leave because of mishandling the Jimmy Savile debacle. So this organisation, it needs someone at the top who knows what they're doing. The last time, every time, right, already they're coming through with all the names, the potential new Director Generals. It's all a bunch of, he'll be good. He's been at the BBC 35 years. Oh, she'll be brilliant. She's 30 years, 3 decades. She knows how the BBC works. Yes, he'll be brilliant. He's been here since 1975. He understands the BBC. They do this every single time. I'll tell you what kind of Director General we need next, Isabel. We need someone who has never set foot inside the BBC before and who doesn't understand the BBC and will turn up and say, do you know what, this organisation is mad, I'm going to bring it back into touch with the real world. How about that?
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Bring in, someone like Paul Dacre, somebody who's worked for
that works for me.
A news organisation that has actually had to, sell newspapers in order to survive. Let's have somebody from the outside that sees it with new eyes rather than a lifer. But look, when you should say that about so many other institutions. It's the same with the NHS. Don't appoint to the top of the NHS someone who's worked for the NHS their whole career. And frankly, perhaps that could be said for many government departments too. All of this got so bloated and so complacent, and it needs an outsider to take a whole different approach and a point of view.
Yeah, I think that on the plus side, the BBC needs to see this turning point as a moment of advantage. They can turn this to their advantage. The moment the BBC changed, the moment the BBC woke up and saw the coffee and started to get things right, because it has been getting things egregiously wrong for way too long. And let's hope it can sort of sweep the board clean and, you know, get cracking again like it used to be. Nice, brilliantly impartial, unbiased reporting, great newsroom, great entertainment, great comedy, great dramas, like it used to. It's not doing that anymore. People are just looking at it and thinking, what's this for? And your kids, by the way, you were going to speak to a 17-year-old at 8 o'clock who's going to tell us why he thinks the BBC has completely lost the young audience, which of course it has. They don't even know what BBC means. They couldn't care less about the BBC. It's too busy like appealing to its friends in North Islington and Hampstead to worry about younger people. So we're going to talk about that later. Next up, we're going to talk about another aspect of the BBC because they're in trouble on trans issues as well. BBC staff, good for them, in uproar about Martine Croxall, the news presenter who last week was censured, told off, found guilty, you know, of terrible broadcasting horror because she raised her eyebrows and looked a bit fed up when her auto cue script said pregnant people. She went like that and then said women. They didn't like that. So there's a lot of trans problems at the BBC as well. We'll talk about them next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. We're talking about the BBC, of course, the big story of the day, the state broadcaster unravelling after the departure, the resignation of both the Director General, Tim Davie, and the head of news, Deborah Turnus, because of an egregious piece of falsity by Panorama. Panorama splicing together Donald Trump's Capitol Hill speech on January the 6th, 2021 to make it look like he incited violence and called for them all to charge on Capitol Hill, fight. He did nothing of the sort. You know, BBC seemed to go, oh, human, a bit of a mistake, human mistake. No, this is serious. But now let's talk about another. It all fits into Trump derangement syndrome at the BBC, is because too many people at the BBC are institutionally left-wing and North London liberal. That's the problem. It's the mindset, the groupthink that goes on at the state broadcaster. That same groupthink, that liberal Guardian reading groupthink, presides over the corporation's coverage of trans issues. Now, Martine Croxall, who once got into trouble, by the way, of laughing when on screen when Boris Johnson had to go in Partygate. She sort of giggled. She got in trouble for that. I didn't like her much for that, but I rather like her now. She's been found guilty, as you know, of face crime, because when the auto cue said pregnant people, she's obviously a feminist, good for her. She didn't like that, so she sort of raised her eyebrows and then said women. Let's have a look.
London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine has released research which says that nearly 600 heat-related deaths are expected in the UK. Malcolm Mystery, who was involved in the research, says that the aged, pregnant people, women, and those with pre-existing health conditions need to take precautions.
Martine, how dare you? How dare you call pregnant people women? Well, that broke the law as far as the BBC was concerned. Well, to be fair, the BBC newsroom, all of her colleagues are in uproar about this, saying this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. So you've got that going on. Then Mark Urban, the BBC's former diplomatic editor, big Newsnight guy, he is recalling on his Substack how when Newsnight wanted to get J.K. Rowling on, an executive said to him, well, there's a problem here. I'm afraid that J.K. Rowling's feminist views are very problematic. So J.K. Rowling didn't want to go on anyway, but the BBC didn't, or executives didn't want her on because they didn't approve of her views on trans issues, very much for women's rights. And not so much in the trans lobby's corner, old J.K. Rowling. And we're also learning, Isabel, the BBC has a, in itself this is funny, the BBC has a gender correspondent. What a gender correspondent. She's called Megan Mohan. And she stands accused of trying to stop women's rights campaigners Women's Place UK appearing on a debate show. She wrote to fellow workers and she wrote this: there is some concern from LGBT plus about giving this group a platform. They are seen as a more extreme organisation that we would be legitimising. A couple of LGBT contacts have told me about Women's Place and called them transphobes in the past. So in other words, they don't want, the feminist side of the argument. I mean, Megan Mohan isn't here to talk about herself, but I don't like the sound of what she was saying there. Do you?
I like the sound of the revolt over what's the censuring of the lady that raised an eyebrow and corrected the auto cue there. I'm glad and encouraged that she's got colleagues who probably in the BBC would be known as allies in that feminist position that she took there. But what does it? It just tells you everything, doesn't it? And you've been very nice, Kev, tonight. Saying
I know. It's in my nature.
You said you hope no one loses their jobs and blah blah blah. Well, I'm a little bit stronger than that. I think people do need to lose their jobs. Like lots of people need to lose their jobs.
You're probably right.
I don't think we need a gender correspondent, and I don't think we need, frankly, hundreds, if not thousands of other people that work at the BBC. This is the problem. And, when you call for this to be the moment that the BBC changed, I really struggle to see how that's going to happen, because the corporation is its people at its heart. And these people are steeped in a certain culture. and you'd have to remove an awful lot of them and replace an awful lot of them with very different type of people to have that huge cultural change that I think is necessary. But it would be a start to remove a lot of them.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I've got a lot of friends at the BBC who are benign and reasonable people, and
of course,
and they've been in touch with me all weekend, going, "Oh, this absolute shambles." You know, they're furious. So when I say I hope people don't lose their jobs, I mean the decent people who are not in any way involved in all of this, who aren't politically motivated. But you're right, it needs slimming down. And incidentally, interestingly, amid all of this, indicating that just maybe there are rumblings of a sea change at the biased BBC. The BBC has agreed to a root and branch review of its climate change coverage. Which I think might spell bad news for that lunatic climate editor they've got, Justin Rowlett, who is nothing more than a green propagandist.
Yeah, that really is good news. Again, you know, that comes up, for example, on programs like Question Time, and there has been, you know, some quite bad misinformation. There have been cases of that, which I've, you know, been part of publicising. So all of this is really welcome. And, you know, I don't also want to sit here and just bash the BBC for no reason. I mean, the BBC has over the years given me a great platform. I think they do some fantastic programming. I mean, I spent 10 years of my life only listening to the Today programme every morning because it was required listening for anyone who's covering politics. You know, they do, in many ways, they set the agenda in the mornings for political coverage, of course, after Talk, which is all revealing lots of exciting things too. So I think it is important to have that balance. The BBC makes some incredible programmes, without a doubt, but with an enormous budget and still making huge mistakes.
Yeah, and when you go, what incredible programmes does the BBC make? And everybody goes, well, you know, like David Attenborough, and also Strictly, and now Traitors. Any more? They always run out after Attenborough. I mean, I always think Attenborough should show a bit of imagination. All he ever does is make programmes about the earth and animals. Make programmes about something else. Honestly.
Right, Kev, you're going to lose half the audience.
He's got his whole life ahead of him. He should make some different programs. I'm being facetious, folks. His programmes are obviously brilliant, but I struggle to think of too many more programmes that the BBC make that are that amazing. I think it is literally just about Attenborough, and that's it. Let's go to break because, hey ho, hooray, champagne corks. We're going to talk about something else apart from the BBC. We're going to talk about the migrant crisis. Stay tuned, folks.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Still with Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, you remember a couple of weeks ago we all kind of reeled back in almost comical horror when we discovered that this ridiculous one-in, one-out scheme that the government's spending a fortune on for reasons that none of us can quite work out why. One of them had been sent to France, returned to France, and then came back. So he went back to Calais and got on a illegal boat. So I don't like this France much. I'll come across to Britain on an illegal boat again. So he did that. Took us 2 weeks. He was Iranian. Took us 2 weeks to get rid of him back to France. Well, you'll never guess what. Another one's done it. So here's the score so far with one in, one out. It is 51 migrants have been dispatched to the UK. So we have sent 75 migrants to France. 75 migrants to France, and they have sent us back 51. So we're 19 up. That's since August, the beginning of August. Meanwhile, about 12,000 foreigners have crossed the channel illegally. So it's not working as a deterrent. We know that. Now, a second one-in, one-out migrant on Sunday returned in an illegal boat. It's getting ridiculous. By the way, let me give you the score. 4 days since last Thursday. Bearing in mind, we're supposed to have the one-in, one-out deterrent. What's happened is for a couple of weeks, the weather was terrible. Come Thursday, the English Channel was like a mill pond. And it was on Friday, and it was on Saturday, and it was on Sunday. Here's the score. On Thursday, 621 migrants came across on small boats illegally. On Friday, 648. On Saturday, 503. And on Sunday, 349. So that's 2,121 illegal migrants crossing the channel unlawfully in 4 straight days. And on Sunday, yesterday, one of them was this guy who'd already been sent back on the one-in, one-out scheme. It's an absolute ongoing sick comedy farce, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, at this rate, some of these people are going to be getting, frequent flyer points back and forth back regularly. Now, a question I keep on asking, does anyone seriously think all these passengers are paying in the way that we've been told they are? This guy that apparently needs to keep claiming asylum, is he paying 1,500 quid every time he comes over? Course he isn't. And once you realise that people are not paying, that really does change everything about the type of people that are coming over. So I just ask people to reflect on that. Some of them are paying. Trust me, most of them aren't in most of these boats. So just let that sink in. And as for the one-in, one-out scheme, why is the government even bothering maintaining this pretense? It's a complete and utter farce. And however many came in over the last few days, I assure you that is a fraction of the people that want to come in. They are queuing up to come in. by these boats. Nobody has been remotely put off by one in, one out. They take their chances, and statistically, that makes every sense to these people.
And of course, tough-talking, hard-line Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is just as useless as all the other Home Secretaries. She's now, she's called the Terminator. She'll sort this out. If you don't leave the ECHR, Shabs, no chance whatsoever. And she won't leave the ECHR, so forget about it. But she's now saying, we're going to adopt the Danish model. Denmark, a very liberal sort of country, has got very hard-line regulations and rules and laws now about migrants. You know, they're not allowed to bring anyone with them. Even if they get approved for asylum, their families can't come, all this kind of stuff. Very, very tough criteria about what will allow them to come. So really, really hard. So Shabana Mahmood said, yeah, we're going to adopt the Danish model, and all the left-wing backbench MPs at Labour go, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not going to be doing that. That's your problem. You've got a kind of left-wing government anyway. Shabana Mahmood's left-wing. She likes migrants, went to the Mediterranean to give migrants free food when they came in from from the Middle East and from sub-Saharan Africa. Oh, here's free food. That's her mindset. But the backbenchers, they won't allow this government to get tough on the migrant crisis. You're not allowed to. So we won't leave the ECHR. Backbenchers won't let Shabana do anything, and that's why we get 2,121 migrants coming across in 4 days, and they'll continue to come. It's an ongoing shambles, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only hope is that Keir Starmer will be ousted, as everybody says he will be, within the next sort of 6 months, and that a new Labour leader is actually ready to stop the boats. But the thing is, how are they going to be elected as Labour leader by the Labour Parliamentary Party and the wider party if they say they'll stop the boats? Because the truth, folks, is that most Labour supporters don't want to stop the boats. They like the boats. They support the boats. That's
exactly right, Isabel. And, you know, does Keir Starmer want to stop the boats? Does Shabana Mahmood really want to stop the boats? I think the jury's out on that, and therein almost certainly lies the problem. Isabel, fantastic to talk to you. You'll be back later in the week. That was Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. And when we come back, I'm going to be talking to young Bob, a most impressive young man who came to see us on Friday. He's going to come back in the studio. I'm going to ask him about the BBC and how he thinks the BBC relates to the younger generation, if at all. That is the point, isn't it? So, young Bob next. Stay tuned. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, in the studio it's Thomas Moffat. Thanks for coming in, Thomas. Known to millions as Young Bob. Now, he joined us on Friday to give us his worldview, particularly on what happened in Birmingham last week. He went up to report on the demonstration outside of the pro-Palestine demonstration outside of Aston Villa. So, let me know what to say. Thomas, his real name is Thomas, let's call him that. Thomas came in to see us, and everybody was knocked out by him, including me. So what I thought might be interesting today was to get him back and talk about the BBC, because I think one of the problems the BBC has today is it is losing touch with, or has lost touch with, its core audience. And when I was younger, the BBC tried its best to reach out to people like me. It tried to, if you like, harness the young audience, provide it with programmes that it liked so that it could suck it into its sort of national broadcaster web. Nothing particularly wrong with that. I find that slightly sinister, but that's a different issue. The point is, they don't do it well now. I think most young people don't even really think about the BBC, barely know what it is. So welcome, Thomas. Welcome, Young Bob. Young Bob is part of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point organisation, the British branch. I mean, before we talk, I mean, you were just telling me, Thomas, off screen, well, you told me a story that actually cuts to the heart of what I think is wrong with the BBC, that you and your friends from Turning Point, after the sad death, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, went to a new broadcasting house to demonstrate, saying, why are you calling Charlie Kirk far right? Charlie Kirk stood for family values. Yes, he was right wing. Yes, he was, if you like, hardcore Republican. Doesn't make you far right. BBC has this tendency to take anyone who's right of centre. As soon as you're right of centre, that's it as far as they're concerned. You're a fascist. You're far right. So I think that is one of the BBC's problems. Its inability to see that political discourse isn't completely binary between left-wing people and far-right people, right?
Yeah, so the BBC is kind of, like all British institutions at the moment, held together by duct tape, irrelevant for young people, and whilst they're trying to appease to everyone of the political spectrum, especially on the left, they don't do well at it at all. So like you said, we actually demonstrated outside the BBC talking about why he called Charlie Kirk in their coverage of his assassination far right. Now, as an institution that hires over 20,000 people, why is it that young people barely even respond to when the BBC is being discussed? Well, that's why I think it's almost mimicking Keir Starmer. They try to appease everyone whilst appeasing nobody. For me as a young person, especially when it comes to entertainment, if you look at, I'm a massive Whovian, Doctor Who fan, if you look at the recent series of Doctor Who, although they've put so much money into it, including the BBC itself spending over £3 billion of government spending into this institution, but actually producing low-quality slop when it comes to shoving down our throats progressive politics. Of course, it recently turned out that they were trying to feddle this sort of transgender ideology into their coverage of the discussion surrounding what is a woman, even though it is a protected right by the ECHR to hold to the position of two genders. So it's just this trying to platform identity politics, which young people don't really care about, and acting like it's a young person issue.
And why is it, I mean, you went some way to explaining it there, but try to crystallise, if you will, why you think it is that the BBC now means pretty much nothing to most young people. How has the BBC lost that connection to the younger generation, people of your age, but not just, you know, 17-year-olds, also people who are younger than that, but probably more importantly, people in their 20s, people in their 30s. Most people below middle age don't seem to have any point of connection with our state broadcaster. Where is the BBC? How has the BBC gone wrong in that respect?
They've misunderstood what it means to be British. And what I mean by that is that British people are private, They don't really talk about politics. If you politicise entertainment, it's deeply unpopular across the board. Now, in particular, young people, young people are actually right-wing. They're supporting Farage. They're going up to him in the street, showing his appreciation for his work. So when you call people like that far-right, when you platform stage debates and make the moderation and the people posing questions loaded towards left-wing, they just feel disenfranchised by them.
And how did you feel as a long-term Doctor Who fan? How have you felt about recent years? I mean, they have taken Doctor Who and just turned it into a sort of one long lecture about, you know, LGBTQ issues, trans issues. It's become some kind of weird vector through which certain BBC types project their left-wing liberal worldview. Yeah, people aren't beginning to realise that legacies, you have to carry legacies. You're not the one that's making them. That is what Britain is. Lest we forget, like, for example, the poppies that we wear. We have to respect our heritage. We don't transform it and progress it. We have to preserve what we already have. And with Doctor Who especially, because of course I was a massive Whovian fan back in the days, seeing that, like you said, they were deflecting their own political ideologies into a historical institution in such a pathetic way. I mean, recently with a new spin-off show, the writer said that you can't call them sea devils as that's considered racist. A fictitious species of monsters being considered... Sea devils? Yes, sea devils is now considered a form of racism. Sorry, well, because they're a different race.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, tell me about the sea devils. I don't know about they live under the water.
Yeah, so, like, there's an argument to be said, like, especially if you look at shows like Fawlty Towers, all of these old British shows. There's always been a discussion, especially at the BBC, and this is why I think, again, they're not attracted towards anyone, about should we change history or should we progress through it? And especially with old programmes, they may have contextualised what they say, because of course that was the time. Now, progressive politics have now, they've already fought the war, they've already essentially won the institutions. So now, in order to continue their narrative, they must look at the smallest amount of things, including language itself. So calling some fictitious Sunday time monster sea devils, then claiming they're racist, is the most, like, exhausting campaign on progressivism I've ever seen in my life.
It is ridiculous. And I mean, how do you think the BBC has arrived at this point? Because this is what's kind of going on. You know, the BBC, if you go to New Broadcasting House, I used to do a lot of work there myself. A lot of nice people, decent, honourable, hard-working people, just trying to do a good job, do the best they can. But they are in the grip of a kind of a corporate madness. And how has the BBC allowed itself to become, if you like, a kind of groupthink centre of Islington politics? Basically, there doesn't seem to be any alternative viewpoint at the state broadcaster to that of a kind of Guardian reading Islington liberal trans rights, LGBTQ rights worldview. I mean, that seems to be it. How has that happened, do you think?
I think it's confused. So, of course, like, we see this with every institution, this confusion of what it means to, like, hire out of diversity for, like, people, minorities, to make it fair. You need to start hiring people that have different opinions. That's what it is meant to be, not biased. You need to hire people of different age groups with different political opinions, and you need to bring more opinions on board. Especially when you try to, like, introduce quotas of what to say, having activists being the ones to censure. And of course, what happened with Trump, I've done a lot of editing for a lot of the stuff that I do. They used B-roll to ensure the swift transition between each segments that they used to portray Trump as someone inciting a riot, which of course he didn't. They were taking at 2 different times within January 6th.
54 minutes apart.
Of course.
Yeah.
So it's just that they need to really come to grasp, but that they're not the only legitimate opinion to be held.
They are very interesting. And why do you think that so many people at the BBC don't really care, don't seem to care, that this worldview that they project almost exclusively at the expense of all other opinions, alienates most of its audience, I would suggest.
It's because the opposing opinions, and we're all guilty of this, whenever we say that the left has done something, it's also the right to blame as well, because we enabled it in the first place. We've enabled the BBC to be the scandalous machine of pushing far-left propaganda for the longest amount of time. So there's partially us to blame to be more organised. If we were out in full force against the BBC, this would have come drastically quicker. Of course, with the whole Gary Lineker situation, it was actually talks that they would have resigned before. So if we had a louder voice, if we actually organise ourselves, and this kind of falls into the work that I do at Turning Point UK, I feel like, for example, mobilising young people into conservatism would actually form a more effective strategy towards having our voice being heard, because it's no longer a small protest outside of their house, but young people en masse in these education institutions calling out the hypocrisy, and that we hold these views and that we want this to be covered and we don't want to be labelled as far right.
And as a 17-year-old, what would you like to see on the BBC? What is the BBC not broadcasting that you'd like to see?
I think it would be utter hypocrisy for me to call for the same right-wing echo chamber that the left currently has at the BBC. I would firstly like to see the complete depoliticalisation of a lot of forms of entertainment at the BBC. I would like them to increase the threshold of controversial right-wingers that they would actually bring on. I would make sure that moderation done and platform the debates is done externally instead of internally. And I would also make it more openly accessible for when they're questioning elected politicians, potential candidates during the election season, to actually come in and pose questions and it not be this in controlled environment, to ensure that there's a fair range of questions posed to each individual during these questionnaires.
And let's talk about, before we go to break, let's talk about accountability. Now, a lot of BBC people today, a lot of staff, senior journalists and executives at the BBC are furious. You know, well, why did the Director General have to go? Why did the head of news have to go? They said, why did they have to go? Well, because they've presided over a terrible, terrible mistake. In fact, both of them have presided over a lot of mistakes, particularly the Director General, Tim Davie, you know, from Gary Lineker to the Gaza documentary to Hugh Edwards to death to the IDF, Bob Villan at Glastonbury, to the MasterChef mess, and now this, you know, on and on and on. In the end, you know, but why did he have to go? Well, I think what we're losing in this country is an understanding that there has to be accountability. If we allow people to make mistakes with impunity, then they're going to make them again, and others will make them again. So I think this was important. This was the BBC, which, by the way, often does its best to protect people who have done made egregious mistakes, but they constantly try to save people. This was a moment of accountability that I think a lot of people around the country were glad to see, and I hope it sends a message generally.
I would sort of disagree. In my eyes, I think the entire BBC would have to be held to account. And it's like politicians whenever they're in scandal. If you look at Keir Starmer's cabinet, for example, whenever they are in scandal, Keir Starmer himself never takes accountability. It's never the whole Labour Party that takes accountability. It's this like tactical resign. Let's see what is the threshold of scandal we can get ourselves involved into. Then we'll leave once the threshold is completely full.
But somebody has to take the blame, has to take responsibility. I mean, Deborah Turner's actually said the key phrase, which was the buck stops with me. I mean, on many occasions in the past, funnily enough, the buck hasn't stopped with her and she's remained in post. But essentially, Tim Davie in particular, after all those scandals and crises I just reeled off, I mean, in the end, he's got to take responsibility. He's the top man. You know, you can't, in the real world, say to 30,000 employees, right, you're all fired. You know, it's correct. It's right, isn't it? The man in the top takes the blame for a massive, massive mistake.
Yeah, I would have, heads have to roll when stuff like this happens.
That's my
I would have just preferred that these people in these positions would have left earlier for previous scandals.
You mean that they'd resigned? Yeah. Well, that's my point. It takes a lot to get to this point where people like, well, in this instance, Davey and Turness, finally, I mean, they did both say in their resignation statements, I think, something about responsibility. As I say, Turner said the buck stops with me. In the past, they don't seem to have felt those emotions, but they have this time. So I think in some respects it's good that the BBC, or what's happened at the BBC, has revealed that in the end, people do have to be accountable for big mistakes.
Exactly. No one's immune to criticism, no one's immune to scandal, and once it comes out, especially if you're in those areas of power, it will be impactful, and hopefully it will swift the Overton window towards let's actually take care of editing, journalistic integrity, ensuring that the edits that we make, especially during documentaries in very politically reactionary times, it won't favour or swing towards one political outcome.
Well said. Now, just before we go to break, just by way of a bit of entertainment, really, Emily Maitlis, former BBC person of many years standing, of course, conducted that famous interview with Prince Andrew, the beginning of the end for him on Newsnight. She now appears on a podcast called The News Agents. It's her and a couple of other old BBC types, being all very left-wing. They're bemused. Why did Tim Davie have to go? We can't believe it, really can't. It's unbelievable. Why has the BBC capitulated to the forces of right-wing darkness? No, they've had to go because they keep making terrible mistakes. But let's have a look at Emily indulging in what I would call an epic case of whataboutery.
And so the way it has been reshaped, the way it's been reworded is you're being cheated by the BBC. They've got an ideological position and you are not getting the whole truth and the BBC is lying to you, because the papers tend to all criticise the BBC but they don't criticise each other. If the papers as one carry on telling the British public that they're being lied to, they can't trust the BBC is bent, the BBC is ideologically to the left, then people start believing it.
Yeah, but we've got a right to believe it, haven't we, Thomas? Because it's just emerged today that the BBC, with monotonous regularity, has been having to, on average, correct 2 mistakes a week in its editorial coverage of the Gaza conflict. And all of these mistakes, of course, are in the pro-Palestine, anti-Israel direction. Then you get the Donald Trump incident. I mean, she's getting all high horse of whataboutery. Well, you know, they have been lying to us. They have been twisting the truth. So that's why it's not about the newspapers telling everybody the BBC is lying to it. It just has been. What it did about Donald Trump was a lie. It was a blatant twisting of the truth. Their coverage of Gaza has, in many instances, been flat-out lies. So, you know, she's got, oh, no wonder that people are believing it. It's because of the newspapers. No, it's not because of the newspapers. It's because the BBC has done this stuff.
Yeah, and also I reject what she's speaking about when it comes to the exclusivity of the critiques of the BBC. So many times we see critiques or even just a lack of coverage when it comes to right-wing media, which is absolutely ridiculous. And especially considering the reason why all these newspapers speak about the BBC is because they receive state funding. They're the ones that every single country that is allied with us look to. I mean, look at what Farage said when he was in contact with Trump. Trump apparently saying, is this how you treat a great ally?
Exactly right. And, you know, the newspapers, the rest of the media, we do reserve the right to forensically examine the BBC, to look at it very closely, because it gets £3.5 billion a year, every year, of our money, licence fee money, £3.5 billion, and frankly uses a lot of that money to, shall we say, make the commercial pitch very difficult for those of us who have to toil in the public arena and not rather the private arena as opposed to the public arena. You know, we at Talk, or the Daily Mail, or the Sun, or the Times, or the Telegraph, or ITV, we don't get £3.5 billion of public money every year. We have to plough our own furrow. So I think it's only right that the rest of the media keep a close eye on this behemoth this publicly funded behemoth, and that I say Emily Maitlis's righteous fury about the right-wing press is just more nonsense, utter nonsense. The BBC has screwed up massively here, made a massive mess, has clearly seriously defamed the President of the United States of America, our greatest ally. This has become an international diplomatic incident due to clear bias at the BBC. Absolute disgrace. We'll talk more about the state broadcaster with young Bob, Thomas Moffat, when we come back. Stay tuned.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm with young Bob, aka Thomas Moffat. He's 17. He was at Aston Villa last week having a look at that pro-Palestine demonstration and got reported on that. So we thought, interesting guy. So we got him in on Friday, and he was even more interesting than that. So we got him in again because I think it would be I always thought it would be very interesting to hear what he thinks about the BBC as a young guy, because I think the younger generation, awful old-fashioned cliche that is, the younger generation, but they have lost touch with the BBC and the BBC has lost touch with it. What do you think the BBC, I mean, having lived abroad in my life, when you go abroad you know, I love Britain and all that, but there are a lot of things about Britain that are very, very strange. And one of the strangest things is we have this national broadcaster for which we have to pay money. So if you don't, I mean, they're getting a little bit less draconian about this than they used to be, but they used to send people to prison, you know, for not paying the requisite amount of money to watch Strictly Come Dancing or something, which is ridiculous. I mean, I think for 100 years or so, when did it start, the BBC, back in whenever? It's about 100 years, just over 100 years old, isn't it? I think it's a kind of social engineering operation. I think it's always been there to try and corral the British people into what they ought to be thinking and how they ought to be reacting to any given situation. And I think that as time has gone on, the people of this country are less minded to be compliant with that. Yeah, social media, think for yourself, the right to publish your own opinions. They don't really need Auntie Beeb anymore, and that's why I think the BBC is foundering a bit, because it has lost its raison d'etre. It doesn't understand what it's for anymore.
Yeah, so let's just look at the optics. Imagine you're not from the UK, you've never stepped forward in the United Kingdom, and someone says there is a state broadcaster that you have to pay for. Now, as the younger generation are turning out to be more...
And if you don't, you'll go to prison.
Exactly. That sounds like something from North Korea.
It's bad, isn't it?
Anyways, besides from the poor optics, the reason why young people don't respond well is because young people are being more anti-establishment. I mean, if you look at the demographics of, for example, a stand-up to racism demonstration, they're mostly young people, and I'm also, of course, admitting that there's an issue with the left when it comes to young people, because I believe that they've been indoctrinated en masse. They're mostly young people, so they're already distrusting of essentially anyone who doesn't wholeheartedly agree with their far-left radical views. So when you have this establishment broadcasting corporation, of course they're going to deeply distrust it because it goes against all of their values. Now, in terms of the right younger generation, they're extremely disenfranchised, like I say, diluting what it means to be far right. Imagine if you had a suspicion that government-funded institutions suspected you of being far right, and this kind of reverberates across every single sector.
You've had that, right?
Yeah, of course, with Prevent.
How many times have you been referred to Prevent?
Twice.
So listen, folks. Thomas Moffat here, young Bob, has been referred to the Prevent system twice. Axel Rudicabana, the Southport killer, I seem to remember, was referred to it but was rejected because he felt that the authority felt that he didn't warrant monitoring by this anti-terrorism setup. But I mean, what I'm saying, folks, is that, you know, to sort of bracket Thomas here with Axel Rudicabana just shows how ridiculous the authorities are when they come to perceived threats to our state, to our culture, to our society. Oh, Thomas Moffat, oh, young Bob, he's right-wing. He must be a threat to us. There's something kind of weird about that, isn't there?
Yeah, and the reason being, if you look at this year's Prevent numbers, it's actually the first time that far-right extremism has been on top of Islamic terrorism. And the reason being is that these institutions like the BBC, like Prevent, like the police, they're given a quota, they're saying, look, this looks bad on paper for the right to use this against us, so what we're going to do is, for everything else, keep a consistent criteria of evidence when it comes to how we prescribe someone as a terrorist, because it's a severe claim. Then when it comes to right-wing terrorism, I mean, last year there was a kid who claimed there was only 2 genders and he got threatened to be put on Prevent. I know people, personally, when I started doing activism on the ground, so many people, and this is where you do not see, and yes, on paper, if you look at polling data, because that's incredibly inaccurate in my eyes, young people are left-wing. But if you were to get rid of Prevent, if you were to proportionately represent everyone in youth parliament, if you were to ensure that there was a diversity of coverage when it comes to the BBC, so many young people would come out to be right-wingers. It would be insane. And that's why my work in terms of Turning Point UK is incredibly humbling for me, because I feel like I can do so much here in the UK, given the momentum that people like Reform are beginning to kind of encourage that sort of behaviour.
And just before you go, explain, we began this conversation where you said that you and your friends are from Turning Point UK, Charlie Kirk's organisation here in Britain. Explain, you were saying that you staged this protest outside the BBC because the BBC kept calling Charlie Kirk far right. Explain why he isn't far right.
Charlie went on this platform of a very simple Christian family life. Of course, I would really want to speak to him. Unfortunately, I couldn't because I only joined the organisation about 2 years ago, just to see how would someone start such a movement here in the UK. He was very much a moderate conservative that cared so deeply about the people that he opposed. He never came into a discussion with ego, with vigour. He always came with a discussion of caring for someone made in the image of God. And it's deeply compelling for me if I look at a principled man who's God-fearing, who pushes conservatism, to kind of attempt to be inspired by that movement and implement it here in the UK.
Well, there you go. Well said. And Thomas Moffat, young Bob, thanks again for coming in. What do you think about what young Bob was saying? All I want to say again, his head's getting bigger and bigger, but he's the most remarkable young man I've ever met. I can't believe it. I just sit here feeling a bit even thicker than I usually do. Thank you, Thomas. Next up, we are going to be talking about a police force that's getting sued because of its alleged institutional favouritism towards the LGBTQ plus community. It's a very interesting lawsuit by decent people. It's not fanatics or anything like that. It's very interesting. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now let's talk about police forces. I've always had this weird thing about police forces. They seem very, very. I'm not a. I'm all for LGBTQ plus rights and all that, gay rights. I'm all for it. But police forces just have this weird thing where they all seem to be very, very pro-LGBTQ plus, but that seems to be the only sort of minority that they pursue, that they want to support. Now, my next guest is actually responsible for taking out a lawsuit against a police force because of what she says and what her organisation, Fair Cop, believes betrays a kind of institutional favouritism towards one section of the community at the expense of others. So let's talk to Sarah Phillimore, a barrister. She's one of the founder members of the Fair Cop organisation. You know, Harry Miller, the ex-copper as well, is also part of it. So welcome, Sarah. Well, tell us who this case is against and why you have brought it.
It's against my local force, Wiltshire Police, because I don't know if you remember, Lindsay Smith won a judicial review against Northumbria Police in July this year. They had breached the statutory duty of impartiality, which all police forces are subject to, by marching at Northern Pride under Progress Pride flags and so on. So the judge was very clear. You can't do that. You're the police. You cannot wave the flags of a contested political movement because you're here to serve everyone without fear or favour. So my solicitors wrote to Wiltshire and said, well, Swindon Pride is coming up on August the 9th. I hope you've read the judgment and you're going to take heed of it. They didn't even bother to answer my solicitor's letter. So a couple of women went down to Swindon Pride and took some photos to see what Wiltshire were up to. And they thought it sensible, a few weeks after a judicial review, telling them they couldn't do this, to send their chief constable in uniform, in public, wearing a Progress Pride flag badge. They also had other flags dotted there and about. I think there was an identifiable policeman wearing a trans flag as an apron. And it's unbelievable. They've just had a very clear court ruling saying, as the police, you can't do this. Of course, go along to demonstrations, marches, rallies, to police, to keep people safe. But you're not there to wave a flag. It doesn't matter that it's the LGBTQI++, anybody's flag. I'd be angry if they waved a suffragette flag. They can't do it. We've got to be able to trust them to act without fear or favour and protect us all, not just those people with political views that they like.
And I think at Wiltshire Pride Day, Swindon Pride Day, didn't the police even have some kind of stall at the event, you know, full of kind of insignia to LGBTQ plus and all that sort of thing.
Those are the photos we've got. I couldn't make it on the day, but luckily there were women prepared to go and take photos. Yeah. One woman who wasn't there but saw all this stuff flash up on her Facebook group tried to complain about it, and the IOPC told her she couldn't complain because she wasn't physically present. So the message that is giving, well, the police can act as unlawfully as they like. If you're not physically there, it doesn't matter. Now, Harry Miller is also bringing action against the IOPC, that's the Independent Office of Police Complaints, because they too go on marches waving Progress Pride flags. You can imagine what confidence we feel in making a complaint to them. None at all. It's so interesting seeing what's happening to the BBC imploding, because it's exactly the same sort of thing. There's this allegiance to one political ideology, one way of thinking, and that is right. You don't question it. You just wave a flag for it. And anyone who isn't signed up is the enemy.
That's exactly right, Sarah. It's an interesting analogy with the BBC. What's going wrong at the BBC, I think, is this groupthink, this rigid groupthink that they have at Broadcasting House, New Broadcasting House, that they cannot see is in any way criticisable. Everything about that has to be right. You know, the trans liberalism, the LGBT liberalism, the Trump derangement syndrome, this kind of certitude about their own worldview that means that just seems to justify them in sort of rejecting all other opinions, all other worldviews. And the police, in many respects, are the same, aren't they? I mean, as I say, I've always found it strange that the BBC is always like rainbow painting its cars and, making these overt demonstrations of pro-LGBTQ plus politics, etc., etc. So they're very keen on the gay rights campaign group and the trans group, but they don't seem to get involved in any other sort of pressure groups, any other campaigning groups. I mean, you know, they get a lot of trouble, but they get accused of institutional racism a lot, but you don't seem to see them sort of campaigning for racial equality that much, do you? For example. I can't hear. We've lost. We seem to have lost the sound there. Can we get?
No. Oh, can you hear me now?
Are you back there? Okay. So can you start that again? I was just saying that we hear them talking about LGBTQ, gay rights a lot, but not often, for example, racial equality issues.
This is what really upsets me as a disabled person, because I have asked, where are the marches for disabled people? Police stations routinely have flown Progress, Pride and trans flags above their police stations. I don't think there's ever been any recognition of disabled people. So that upsets me. But the answer to this is that the police don't fly any flags at all, ever. Because if they start doing it for one group, they've got to do it for all. Their entire job will be taken up 24/7, running different flags up and down the flagpole. They've just got to stop, because it is breeding resentment and upset. I do feel upset that my local police force will wave a flag for one minority group, but not mine. Why? And I feel, very upset that they've recorded me as a barrister posting hate when I post stuff about you can't change sex and men are men and women are women. So you can imagine I feel zero trust and confidence in my local force now. And this legal action has just served to cement that. And it's really dangerous, isn't it? I mean, we lose trust in the BBC. We've lost our public broadcaster. We lose trust in the police. And that's the fabric of our society unravelling, because they don't have enough officers or firepower to do this job unless they have the trust and the consent of the public. There's not enough of them. And they are very, very close, I think, to throwing that away.
I agree with you. Just quickly, Sarah, since you brought it up, can you explain to the audience why you're disabled?
I was born with proximal focal femoral deficiency, which means my femur didn't develop. So my left leg was amputated above the knee when I was 12. So I've got a pretty keen understanding of what it's like to be a minority group. I don't think what I'm doing is being bigoted or evil or horrible. The words are often thrown at me on social media. I'm just asking the police to do their job and to police without fear or favour.
And your legal action is an action of principle insofar as the ostensible police favouritism towards one section of society makes it hard to trust them. So, for example, if you had some kind of criminal dispute with a trans person or an LGBTQ person, you would have cause to believe that institutionally the police probably favoured them and not you.
My address has been posted online at least 4 times now by trans rights activists. A brick came through my window, attached to it a note going, "We're going to come and kill you, you horrible turf." I now do not have confidence that the police would take that seriously. They would investigate, they would find the person who did that and punish them. I don't, because I think the police would be agreeing with them, saying, well, she was asking for it, wasn't she, filthy turf? This is the problem when the police take sides. We've got to be able to trust them. It's really important. And the fact that my local force blatantly and flagrantly and deliberately broke the law weeks after a High Court judgment makes this even more serious, in my view.
It's extraordinary, Sarah, and really good to talk to you. Good luck with the lawsuit. Sarah Phillimore, the barrister, one of the founding members of Fair Cop. As I say, Harry Miller, our ex-copper friend who comes on the show quite a lot. He's the other arm of that excellent organisation, and basically they campaign for a fair and equal police force. They campaign against coppers knocking on your door to say, "Oh, I think you did a dodgy tweet 9 months ago," etc., etc. That kind of police harassment. They campaign against non-crime hate incidents and all the other arms of overzealous policing that are disconcerting, and also fairness. Fairness no good. The police can't keep. She's right. Sarah's right. The police can't keep just going LGBTQ. Yeah, look, we've painted some police cars rainbow colours. Look. Oh, here's some coppers in high heels. Isn't that great? They can't keep just favouring that one pressure group. As Sarah says, that means arguably they're not being fair to the rest of us. So they need to stop this, don't they? this kind of agitated, this kind of activist nonsense. They're the police. Don't want to know about their political opinions. Don't want to know about who they favour and who they don't. They're not supposed to favour anyone. So is Sarah right? Let me know. Do they have to end this nonsense? No more LGBTQ stands at Swindon Pride Day. No more wearing LGBT trans badges by coppers. Not because I'm against those groups, not because I'm against gay rights or trans rights. I'm all for gay and trans rights, but because it's not right that the police favour one group when there are all these others as well, like the rest of us. Am I right? Let me know. 03444991000. Now, we're going to go to break in just a second. We're going to have a sort of change of play because usually probably would take some calls now, but Kinsey Schofield, our royal guru, who usually comes on about 9 and sticks around till about 25 past, she's got to go early tonight, so she's going to come on after this break. Then we're going to go to the news, 9 o'clock, and then we'll go past the news with Kinsey to about 10 past, something like that. So Kinsey Schofield next. Much to discuss. Meghan not wearing a poppy. Has she gone back into the movies because the Sussexes are running out of money? And might they lose their titles just like Andy did, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Might the Sussexes be the next to lose their royal titles? All that and so much more with Kinsey Schofield. When we come back, stick around.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, a little earlier than usual. A warm welcome to the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev. We had a wild weekend in the royal watching community, so I did think it was crucial that we caught up today.
Yeah, indeed, and that we got a decent amount of time in, so we're going to go across the news with you. So first of all, just by way of a little bit of footage, a little bit of film, here's what Her Majesty, Her Ladyship, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, has been posting on Instagram. Check it out. Now listen, Kinsey, I've got to explain this to the audience. Those of you who have not got sort of degrees in culinary arts or are not cordon bleu chefs, don't try that, because that is only for people who are really, really skillful in the kitchen, right? I mean, where did she get her ideas from? So it's a bagel with some cream cheese and bits of fruit in it and some dried flowers. That's it. This is going to be part of her holiday special with Love Meghan on Netflix coming this Christmas, right?
Yes. I mean, wait, are we even going to talk about the fact that it directly conflicts with Catherine's Carol concert, Princess Catherine, that she's done this, so it's released basically
I didn't even know that. Or she done it again, has she?
Classic. I mean, and the reason why I think that's interesting, or the date specifically is interesting, is because she either didn't know, she lied, or plans changed, because during her Fortune Most Powerful Women speech or sit down last month in Washington, D.C., she specifically said that the Christmas special was coming out in November. So now we see that it's coming out the week before, or it's coming out the same week that Catherine typically does her Christmas Carol concert, December 5th. I also had the press release Netflix sent to me. Do you care to hear what the press release says?
Yes, please. Yeah, of course.
Well, of course, embrace traditions and make new ones this holiday season. You do have to make a lot of new traditions when you have no friends and family left. So I get that, Meghan Markle. With Love Meghan holiday celebration arrives December 3rd. And it says, this December, join Meghan in Montecito for a magical holiday celebration. Together, friends and family deck the halls, create holiday feasts, craft heartfelt gifts, and share lots of laughs with simple how-tos to follow at home. It's a holiday wonder with warmth, tradition, and a generous dose of joy.
Excuse me, pass the sick bucket, please.
Exactly.
How does she think, Kins? Why does she think that there's any point in saying, here's some bagels, here's some cream cheese, oh, look, there's bits of fruit in it, and, oh, yeah, dried flowers. What is the damn point? What's the point of that?
My friend Scott Rouse sent me the flower sprinkles, and I almost sued him. I almost called the police on him because I thought, I do not want this in my home. When I opened it, I felt like I was getting hit in the face with the potpourri aisle at a, Dillard's. Yeah. It's not appetizing at all. It's not something I would ever think to consume. Did it remind me of something that might be hovering in the bathroom, at a
bit like crushed. Yeah. They're like crushed insects. So I managed to get some as well when I made my famous cookie dough cookies, and we put the, I guess they sent me this packet of dry flowers. What was it? $12 or something. And so anyway, but be utterly pointless. Very, very strange. We've still got time to talk about the weekend trip.
Can I just
go on. Go.
It is interesting to me because it lists the executive producers for Archwell, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Enjoy that title. And then it says a couple of other people. Why is Meghan listed as an executive producer on Harry's projects, and Harry is not listed as an executive producer on Meghan's projects? I think that if everything is hunky-dory at home and you're trying to look like a tight-knit unit, then you're going to slap his name on the project the same way you slapped your name on his polo project.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment about every time when they went to the Dodgers game the other week, there was a picture of him looking very scowly. And this weekend, a couple of issues to discuss about the Gruesome Twosomes outing. They went to Kris Jenner's 70th birthday, a 007 James Bond theme birthday party at Jeff Bezos's 165
Were they the
million.
villains? Were they the villains in the
probably,
story?
Yeah. They both. She went stroking a cat like Blofeld or something. But anyway, they went to Jeff Bezos's mansion for this special party for Kris Jenner, and so Harry turned up wearing a poppy, and she didn't wear a poppy. So there's a lot of people saying, "Well, where's your damn poppy?" And she said, well, it's because they're not widely available here in America. Well, okay, but your husband's got one. I mean, that doesn't really wash. So she probably...
You know what? Yeah. I had to order an emergency poppy as a gift because I stole one of my friends. $8.99 on Amazon. I had it overnight. Meghan, you're lying. You are lying. You are lying. You are lying.
She just didn't do it, did she? She just forgot.
No, she didn't. She doesn't. She didn't just forget. She doesn't care, Kevin. She doesn't care about your traditions. She doesn't care about your history. She doesn't care about your country. She's bored by it. She doesn't like to follow the rules. She doesn't care. She continuously disrespects the institution and the country that she married into.
Well, I would tend to agree, and you know, I'm being generous when I said she forgot, because it's hard to believe she just forgot, because all she had to do was look to her left, and there's her husband with to his credit, with a great big poppy on. So why is he wearing one and she didn't? Given that they are both officially members of the royal family.
Well, yeah,
the British
Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
Well, she's a member of the British royal family. She should have paid respect to Britain's fallen war heroes, don't you think?
Especially since Prince Harry is forcing his half-in, half-out royal status by showing up in Canada at a veterans center and saying on TV that, oh, he's so happy to visit the center that his aunt, grandmother, and great-grandmother visited, basically saying, I am the Queen's grandson. I'm forcing this half-in, half-out, strategy that the Queen specifically said you can't do. Yeah, if you're going to become the face for veterans in the Commonwealth, then the least your wife can do is wear a poppy.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk to. We're going to go to the news in just a few seconds, Kinsey. But what I'd like to talk about when we come back after the news is this continued campaign by Prince Harry to go back on what her late great Majesty the Queen wanted. She said you can't do half in, half out. You can't just do some royal duties and then swan on back to California to enjoy the sunshine there. You can't do that.
And the Kardashians.
You can't, and the Kardashians. You can't just do that. And apparently he was stunned when she said no, and he's never got over that. And he's still campaigning for that to happen, which I think disrespects her memory. And also, the king will never allow it. But you know what he's like? Once he gets an idea in his head, he's like a dog with a bone. He won't give up. So we will talk about that after the news. So I'm still with Kinsey Schofield. We'll be back after this bulletin.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Kinsey Schofield, I should say, Kins, just before I talk to you, that in 15 minutes or so the phone lines will be open. Let me know what you think about the BBC drama. 03444991000. Will Donald Trump sue? Yes, I think he will. Does the BBC deserve it? Yes, I think it does. And is the BBC institutionally biased? Deborah Turnus, the departing head of news, says it's not. I think she's talking rubbish, don't you? It is institutional bias. It's against Israel, pro-Palestine. Its newsroom is now a joke. A byword for partiality, not impartiality. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Before we get to you, though, back to Kinsey. Kinsey, we were just discussing before the news, and I want to get into this a bit. The Prince Harry, for Remembrance Weekend, if you like, went up to Canada to join, I think, some probably British veterans. A lot of Canadian soldiers fought in the army. So he, nothing wrong with this, by the way. He hooked up with some fellow military veterans to pay tribute to the fallen, to the veterans who risked and gave their lives for their country. So he went up to do that, and then came back and went to Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party, business as usual. But the point, what people are saying is that when he went to Canada, this is the latest example of him desperately trying to show the royal family, the king and the rest of the royal family back here in Britain, look, here I am doing a Remembrance Sunday thing. I could still be really useful to the royal family.
I could contribute.
Performing frontline duties. He still hasn't given up on that idea, and he's hoping that King Charles will go, oh, never mind what my mum said, let's get him back for partial duties. Never going to happen, is it? But he won't give up.
No, and if you're anything like me, yes, I appreciate any acknowledgement of our veterans. I love our veterans all over the world. But I'm not going to forgive and forget the fact while Harry is posing for the cameras next to elderly veterans, I am not going to forgive and forget the way he treated his grandmother and his grandfather in their twilight years. You can't just take pictures next to elderly veterans and erase your horrific behavior towards two very brave people that also fought for your country, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip in their own ways. It all just looks like a PR push when it comes to Harry. By the way, did you know that the families of those veterans received an email that said Prince Harry is coming and you're not allowed to come to the venue while he's here. Under any circumstances, do not show up while Harry's here. So Harry running people, keeping people away from their family members so that he can get the perfect shot, so that he can get the perfect image for his own PR ambitions. I just think it all looks highly choreographed because he realizes he in his mess kit and is trying to generate some public support by doing the things that people fell in love with him for doing in the first place. Well, your behavior over the last 5 years told us so much more about you than the image that the palace had constructed of you that we now know to be fake and inauthentic. You have turned out to be an incredibly selfish individual. So when I see the pictures of him and these elderly people in Canada, I think to myself, how unfortunate that you couldn't have shown your grandmother and your grandfather that same generosity, kindness, empathy, and compassion.
A very good point. Well said, Kinsey. But let's see where he heads next. But he's not going to. It's like his obsession about getting an armed police gun guard when he comes back to Britain. He's lost that case, he's lost that case, he's lost that case. He's spent millions of pounds on it, but he won't give up. He's so stubborn, like a little kid who doesn't get his own way. And he's not going to give up on this halfway in, halfway out royal duty thing, and it's never going to happen. But you know what he's like. Let's talk about...
Also, do you not see the hypocrisy in the fact that the Kardashians have spent the last 20 years of their lives selling their family secrets? That's literally how they made themselves, selling their family secrets. Look at TMZ in the last 48 hours. Kris Jenner's birthday, Kylie Jenner's cat, Kim Kardashian failing the bar exam. The Kardashians have the media on speed dial. They are not trustworthy individuals. But Harry accuses his family of doing the exact same thing, and that's unforgivable.
To be fair to the Kardashians, that's what they do. They've turned themselves into
But why is it okay for the Kardashians, and Harry claims when Harry claims his family does sell secrets about him or sells secrets, then all of a sudden it's unforgivable? And
I see what you mean, yeah, but there can be no equivalence drawn. But this is the trouble. I think Meghan doesn't quite see the difference. There's no equivalence between the royal family and the Kardashians,
She doesn't see the difference. The Kardashians are where they are because Kim Kardashian made a sex tape with Ray J, and Kim Kardashian, releasing her underwear with details on the front of them in the last few weeks.
Oh my God.
And these are the people that she is chasing after in the United States, and she left this historic, powerful, relevant, culturally relevant institution that's built on doing things for other people. Yeah. Meghan would rather associate with the people that are so vapid, shallow, and only out to benefit themselves.
Yeah, well, that sort of fits in with everything that she adds up to, I think. Let's talk, before you go, Kins, about her movie. She's making this movie called Close Personal Friends with a small star cast. Lily Collins, was it Jack Quaid? Who else? Remind me. Anyway,
Brie Larson.
Brie Larson, yeah. So she's making this movie in which she plays herself about two couples, one famous, one not famous. Sounds mildly interesting. She says she's been inundated with scripts ever since she stopped acting 8 years ago. I kind of doubt that. And if this was the one that's tempted her back, what's so great about this one? Not a very star-studded cast, clearly quite a low-budget thing. She's just got to pay herself. I think she's snapped up the first offer she got. And the reason she's done this, according to speculation in the British press, big piece in the Daily Mail on Saturday, is she's taken this acting job because they need the money. Do you think that is the case? Do you think now the Sussexes, having lost their $100 million Netflix deal, having lost their Spotify deal, are now, looking for ways to make money on a quite urgent basis?
The only reason why I question that is because they have been donating a lot of money recently. I mean, I feel like they kind of had to donate that money. We saw them donate hours before they showed up at Kris Jenner's house because they knew people would be saying online, like, people have run out of their SNAP benefits and you're partying at Jeff Bezos' house. You look ridiculous. But they have donated a significant amount of money. I mean, I really think Meghan Markle just likes the attention. But I would say what a great example of Harry and Meghan's disloyalty. They've been on the Netflix roster for 5 years now. There were plenty of opportunities for Meghan to do cameos in different Netflix films and series because Meghan Markle is mentioned in different Netflix films and series. She was just mentioned in Nobody Wants This Season 2. And that's just one example of Meghan Markle pop culture references in Netflix scripted TV and movies. So Meghan runs over to Amazon, instead of giving her first cameo to Netflix, these people that have put a significant amount of money in her pocket. Harry has to apologize in Canada for wearing the Dodgers cap. I mean, where's the due diligence? Where's the loyalty? You know, Harry and Meghan are loyal to nobody except for themselves, or who's willing to give them a hand.
Oh, by the way,
nobody.
So Harry, as you say, for Remembrance Weekend, went up to Toronto for Remembrance services. As I say, keep saying nothing wrong with that, by the way. But anyway, he goes up there, and the Torontans, is that what you call them? Anyway, they're taunting him and saying, "What were you doing down in LA wearing that LA Dodgers baseball cap when the LA Dodgers were playing the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series? Why weren't you wearing?" And he made some sort of joke about, "Oh, well, actually, I was just trying to cover up my bald spot." And as I mentioned to you on WhatsApp, bald spot, that is the world's biggest bald spot, isn't it? How much longer is he going to hang on to those 7 strands of red hair around his balding pate?
I'd say it's karma for how ugly he was about Prince Williams. And now Prince William's literally being voted the sexiest bald man in the world. So, but yeah, he also said he was in duress, and he had to because the owner of the Dodgers had invited him. Nice little, you know, humble brag in that sentence that he had to because he was personally invited by the owners of the Dodgers.
Yeah, okay then, all right. Because, of course, Meghan wore an LA Dodgers cap as well, and she's got this big Canadian affinity, isn't she, having made suits up there. So it was felt that she betrayed the Blue Jays, and so did Harry. But just before you go, Kinsey, we discussed this before, but just how worried do you think the Sussexes should be about their titles? Because I'm hearing more and more that Prince William, I don't want him to ascend to the throne anytime soon, obviously, because of King Charles and all that. But when he does take power, their titles will be gone, along with the former Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's going to take their titles away, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Paula Froelich of News Nation reported last week that William will never willingly be in the same room as Harry again, except perhaps at the king's deathbed and possibly the funeral. And according to her sources, William might not even want him at the funeral. I doubt that his courtiers would allow a full ban, but that's what's being reported. And they're saying that just Harry was never this spoiled before marrying Meghan. He was not this bitter. He understood what the rules were. And that this new person that they're saying that married Meghan is unrecognizable to Prince William. And they, you know, even with the way that Harry announced his trip to Canada in the middle of a very important trip between Earthshot and COP30 for Prince William. They're saying that it was deliberate. Harry is a spoiled brat who wants the attention. He's very jealous of William, and he's not getting good guidance. He looks miserable all the time. And I would say, yes, he looked so miserable outside of Kris Jenner's birthday party.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? I mean, and he didn't look too pleased for much of the time at the LA Dodgers last year. Every time we see him out these days, he's kind of scowling. Now, we always sort of speculate, you know, just how happy are things behind the gilded gates of Montecito Towers. I mean, more and more, he's kind of betraying perhaps that things aren't that happy at home because he looks so permanently miserable, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Well, and he knows that it's not just the media that are documenting his life now. It's happening inside his home. You know, Meghan Markle's there putting together a full production reel when she goes out one night to a Dodgers game. There were probably instructions not for everybody to have their cell phone out at Kris Jenner's party. But if there were, I can't imagine how obnoxious that reel would have looked coming from Meghan Markle to prove that, you know, people know who she is and she can get a picture with Gayle King still. So I think that he doesn't like being on display in the way that she's got him on display lately.
Yeah, like he's playing a bit part in the real life movie of her life, and he looks very fed up, but we'll have a talk about that maybe later in the week. I know you got to go, Kinsey, so thank you so much. Great to speak to you as always. Kinsey Schofield there, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, a little earlier than usual. We'll go to break now, and we'll start taking your calls, maybe your WhatsApp voice notes. I'll read some of your messages when we come back, so stick around, stay tuned.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. So for the rest of the show, all the way to 10 o'clock, where the floor is open to you, 03444991000. Don't forget, at 10 o'clock we go live to Washington for our new show, newish anyway, Harry Cole Saves the West, and then at 11 p.m. in comes Petri Hoskin, who will take you through into the small hours to 1 a.m. So much still to come. Right, WhatsApp voice notes. Let's go to one of those first, shall we? This is Scott on Trump and the BBC.
I think if that case strings on for long enough where Farage gets into power, I think as a token of friendship that Donald Trump will say, I'll let that slide. I'll let that go. You know, because I'm a true believer that Donald Trump loves this country, loves our country, but he cannot stand Starmer and all that front bench.
Well, Scott, I sort of agree with the sentiments of your WhatsApp voice note, but the problem is you say, oh, well, he'll let that slide. Well, if Farage ever gets in as Prime Minister, that's not for 3.5, 4 years. So Trump is not going to let this slide all that time. So he's not going to let it go. I think he will sue. He will demand the money. I mean, this is an open and shut case. BBC has already essentially admitted that it did wrong here, which it did, clearly. It's made the most egregious of mistakes. That's why Tim Davie, the Director General, and Deborah Turnus have had to go. The Farage factor won't kick in for nearly 4 more years. Therefore, Trump will not let it slide, obviously. He's not going to wait that long. There you go. That's my view. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk to Wayne in Bournemouth. Hi, Wayne.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You want to talk about the BBC, yeah?
Yeah. I just wanted to raise the fact that we hear a lot of the BBC pundits, etc., who've got a vested interest, talking about this being a mistake and a one-off. It's
not a one-off, is it?
No.
But carry on. Sorry.
No, it's fine, and I know it's not, because I've been writing to the BBC about similar issues now since, well, probably 15 years now. Can I just say, just a caveat this, whenever we get into these debates online or whenever you hear people talking, it always comes down to the people. And personally, for me, it's about the policy and the principle rather than the actual people. So you don't have to be a fan of Trump to see what's wrong and call it out, is my view.
It's almost, Wayne, you're absolutely on the money there. Basically, it's almost as if it doesn't matter that this is about Donald Trump. What the BBC has deliberately done here, its flagship news programme, Panorama, respected programme over many years, what that programme has done has deliberately doctored Donald Trump's speech, or for the purposes of this argument, a speech by a prominent politician to make it look as if he said something that he didn't. That's an open and shut case. It happens to be Donald Trump. And the BBC cannot call this, it's not a human error. It may not be the editor of Panorama's fault. They may not have known about this. It may not be various executives' fault. I'm sure that directly neither Tim Davie nor Deborah Turnus were involved in this, but someone's got to take the blame. The fact of the matter is that somewhere, someone in the Panorama setup did this. They deliberately doctored Donald Trump's January the 6th speech in 2021 to make it look as if he called on the mob to storm Capitol Hill, fight, fight, fight. He didn't do that. He actually did the opposite. He actually said, come on, everybody calm down. So this is massive. This is massive. So when they say, oh, this is all part of a right-wing plot to bring us down, this is, right-wingers and the Daily Telegraph trying to undermine us, it's absolute claptrap. What's happened here is this is a massive, massive libel of the President of the United States, our closest ally. This has caused a diplomatic incident. And heads have rolled, but it's not the end of it, because Donald Trump is going to sue the BBC. There's no doubt about it. He says for $1 billion.
And I would totally agree, but I would suggest it goes deeper. And the reason why I say that...
What do you mean by that, Wayne?
Well, what I mean by that, I'll give you 2 examples. Well, first of all, as well, just to take a step back about this latest example, what people aren't necessarily focusing on as much as I believe they should, it was just before the election. It was a blatant attempt, in my opinion.
That's a really good point, Wayne. That's a really, I think that will come into, on the basis Donald Trump does proceed with this lawsuit, and I think it will. One of the bases of his legal action will be to say this deliberately interfered with my campaign actually to establish that the election had been stolen from him. You're right.
Exactly. And the reason why I say it's a deeper issue is for 2 reasons. I'll give you 2, and these may sound a little bit outlandish, but it's true. So firstly, it's not the first time they've doctored a Donald Trump video panorama because in 2017 I watched the Russia video when they were talking about.
Well, hang on, I've got to be careful here. I don't know about this, so I really don't want to go down. I don't know about this.
Well, I won't.
I can't sit here and say, oh, they did do that, because I don't know about this.
Well, I wrote a complaint. Well,
you claim that they did that, yeah?
I claim that I did it, and I wrote them. I wrote them an email to complain, and I got a response back from the BBC to say that it acknowledged the complaint. It was John Sweeney's panorama video, and I sent it in 2017. Okay. And the second thing, which is why I say it goes deeper, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So now, when my daughter was growing up, she was about 4 or 5 or 6, and I was watching Balamory, believe it or not. Okay. And I was watching it. Now, I'm a sensible person. I'm
okay, what did you see on Balamory, whatever that is?
It's a children's TV program.
Okay, all right.
For really young. And I was watching it, and I thought, hang on a minute, that's not reflective of the UK population, because there was a black person, Asian person, disabled person, white person, whatever.
Okay.
That's an attempt by the BBC to try and condition my child. I can't have that. So I wrote to them and said, look, I can see what you're doing. You're manipulating. Right.
And what was their response?
I got a really detailed response. I believe it was from Tessa Jowell at the time, 3 or 4 pages, and they were basically explaining how the licence fee is to reflect society, and it was waffle. Yeah. And as I said to them, okay, fine, but you're not reflective of society by doing that. What you're doing is you're creating a narrative for my child, and I'm the one who should educate my child about such things, not you. I see the principle, what you're trying to do, and I support a principle of equality, but I'm the one who
yeah, well, quite right too, Wayne.
And I think, and I've said this online, I think if there was a Freedom of Information Act request made to the BBC, because I'm a normal person who just looks at things with common sense, we might find several hundred or several thousand over the years similar complaints about similar issues.
Well, I think that the BBC does have a kind of almost unwritten hidden agenda, that it sees itself as the social engineers of British society, British culture, and that's what we have to divest it of, because I don't want to hear from them. I don't care about their North London, Islington worldview. I don't want them to influence the way I think, and they're welcome to try, but they can't use underhand tactics like they've done with Donald Trump here, and that is going to cost them. That is going to cost them, and they deserve it. Wayne, I've got to move on, but really good call. Thank you very much. Wayne in Bournemouth there. Let's quickly talk to Dan in Liverpool. Hi, Dan.
Hello, Kevin. To quote the famous Catherine Tate, this is a bloody liberty, I believe.
In what way?
I think Donald Trump...
What's a liberty?
I think it's absolutely a shame that something that the BBC, which should have been the pinnacle of the British nation, has done something like this in an underhanded manner. And personally, I don't think Donald Trump should actually sue the BBC.
Why not? Why not? They've libelled him in the most egregious way.
I think he should do something better. I think he should look at putting UK tariffs up to 90%. If a taxpayer's going to pay for the BBC, I think, and this would be very good for Farage as well, and I'll explain this in 2 seconds, I'll try my best. Wouldn't it be lovely if Donald Trump says, I'm going to increase tariffs up to 90%, and when Farage gets in, suddenly the tariffs come down, making Farage...
Yeah, but the trouble with that is Dan, I mean, I think the BBC deserves to be sued, and it's. I say that. I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly because that will cost licence fee payers money. Will end up footing the bill, but they deserve to be sued. I don't think he should take it further than that. This is an argument between Donald Trump and the British Broadcasting Corporation. It isn't. It isn't essentially an argument between Donald Trump and Britain, is it?
I would agree with that, but unfortunately the taxpayer is going to be split on the bill either way, regardless.
Well, no. I mean, the bill for his lawsuit against the BBC will be considerably less than 90% tariffs all the way until Nigel Farage gets in, which will be the best part of 4 years. I mean, that is a pretty heavy price to pay, don't you think? He's not going to do that, and I don't think it would be reasonable.
I do agree. 90% is a bit extreme.
Well, no. What I'm saying to you, Dan, you're misconstruing what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this is not a dispute between Donald Trump and Great Britain, this country. It's a dispute between the President of the United States and the British Broadcasting Corporation. He has no right to expand that to all of Britain. Do you see what I mean?
I see exactly what you mean. I just don't like the idea that at the end of the day, my money and your money and good hard-working people of this country will have to be paying for it through our license.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just one of those things, but that'll cost us a lot less than 90% tariffs for the next 3.5 years, won't it?
I am being a bit facetious.
You see what I mean? You see what I mean? I think it stays as a lawsuit, and it's going to cost the BBC. Yeah. This is far from over, this situation.
Can I ask one question, please?
Very quickly.
Would this technically be criminal if this was taken to court and they used that video as evidence? Would that not be classed as fake evidence?
Arguably, you could, I think, legally argue this amounts to criminal libel. That a crime has been committed here, but I'm not sure if he's going to go down that route. But that will be, you'd need a better legal authority than me to tell you that. But I think he'll stick with the lawsuit, the libel. You know, he's been defamed here in a major way. The BBC Panorama made it look as if he called on the Capitol Hill mob to storm Capitol Hill and to fight. He did nothing of the sort. And to maintain or to pretend to the viewers, to the audience, that he did that is a massive libel. That's why heads are already rolling and this lawsuit is upcoming. Dan, I've got to go now, but thank you for a good call. Very excellent call. Thank you. Dan in Liverpool. Let's go to break. More calls when we come back. More messages, more WhatsApp voice notes. Stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Taking your calls. The BBC, is it institutionally biased? Was it right that Tim Davie, the Director General, and Deborah Turnus, the head of news, both walked the plank yesterday, that they handed in their resignations over this terrible, terrible libel against the President of the United States? Panorama splicing together parts of his speech to make it look as if he called for insurrection and violence and for the mob to fight on Capitol Hill. He did nothing of the sort. So let me know what you think about all of this. 0344 499 1000. Let's play a quick WhatsApp voice note. This is Darren on pregnant people.
Now, Kevin, this original report from the London School of Hygiene didn't actually mention pregnant women or pregnant people. It mentioned a number of people being killed by heat stroke, and it focused on people over 65. So the BBC actually added pregnant people. That's how bad it is. They just did it to try and be inclusive. It's a crazy world we've got with the BBC.
Exactly right, Darren. This was all part of poor Martine Croxall's script. So she's got, I mean, I've got a lot of auto cue experience myself. And when you're reading the auto cue, you're just reading it. Sometimes you go, what they get me to say here? But you just plough on. Her, to her credit, she said, what's this pregnant people claptrap? We're talking about women who are carrying babies, women who are pregnant. They're women. They're not pregnant people. They're not blokes. They're women. She was fed up about that. The BBC, you're quite right, that wasn't in the original report, but it was in the BBC script. Make of that what you will. Let's go to Kevin in Dorset. Hi, Kev. What would you like to say?
Hi there. Love your show, as always.
Thank you.
So I'll try and stitch this together. There's 4 points.
Yeah, well, what, like the BBC stitches things together?
Yeah, but mine's a little bit more professional.
Maybe a little bit more truthful, I hope. Yeah, but go on. Yeah.
So the first point, the legal stance, and what your previous caller was talking on, but I was going to mention anyway. If this was before what they've done with Trump, it would have been classed as corruption of election standards. Because they would have been interfering with an election.
Electoral interference, is it? It could be classified as.
That's the one. Yeah.
Although if I got this right, I mean, can it be electoral interference? Because it was just at this point, this was just Trump moaning about having the election stolen from him, wasn't it?
But there was. But I think that the key point here is that. The way they broadcasted it shows that they were aligned to the Democrats.
But it was before just had that corrected, it was before the election. So, yeah, arguably, yes, you could definitely say this was Panorama electorally interfering in Donald Trump's chances of winning. Certainly, I know this much, Kev, I don't think he'll let the BBC get away with this. A lot of people saying, oh, he won't go through with this lawsuit, will he? We'll tell that to CBS and Paramount. When he sued them for doctoring a Kamala Harris interview to make her look better than she was. He sued them and got $16.5 million he got from Paramount, the head company of CBS, which runs the 60 Minutes show, the America's equivalent to Panorama. So he sued them. I think he will sue the BBC.
So, taking that comment, and then you align that with the head of the BBC being asked to leave by the British government, who are also left, and so a Democrat. They're aligned with each other. Mm-hmm. We have the confirmation that the BBC are controlled by the government.
Well, hang on a second. We don't know that the government ordered Tim Davie to resign.
Well,
we don't, Kevin. Kevin, you might think that, but that's pure speculation.
Oh, I didn't realise. My apologies. I take that back.
It's a fair thing to think. I've got my suspicions myself. My feeling is that Keir Starmer thought, hang on a second, this is now going to affect our special relationship with America. We've got to do something about this. We've got to show Donald Trump that we're taking firm action about what happened at the BBC. But we don't know this. As things start, ostensibly, Tim Davie and Deborah Turnus did the honourable thing, fell on their swords and resigned in a kind of disgrace.
I think the key point is that, as you said before, that they know this has been deliberately done. They've admitted liability.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
And all the other programmes that have also had these same problems done means that really we should be looking further deeper into the BBC, which staff are involved in knowingly participating in doing this. And that's what needs to be weeded out of the BBC if it has a future. And on the same breath, I would say I'm contemplating sending a letter to the BBC myself and saying I'd like a refund on my licence because it clearly states on the code of conduct of the BBC that they must not have any political view whatsoever and they must be impartial. And quite clearly, they're politically aligned.
Well, I think it's exactly right. I mean, the news department, the editorial department has really got some big questions to answer. I mean, we found out yesterday, just as Deborah Turnus, the head of news, was resigning, that the BBC News Department has pretty, on average, been having to apologise twice a week for serious mistakes in the coverage of the Gaza conflict, the Gaza war. And of course, all those mistakes are pro-Palestine and anti-Israel. So there's no doubt that the news department has become prejudiced, has become biased against Israel. There's a problem there. And I do think, as Nigel Farage indicated earlier, that this brings into sharp focus how much longer, the question, how much longer are we as a nation supposed to be expected to hand this organisation, this broadcasting company, best part of 180 quid a year for what? Biased reporting, rubbish drama and useless comedy. I mean, why? The BBC, I think this might be the turning point. The BBC should be told, make your own way. Subscription. If you make good programmes, people will give you money. If you don't, they won't. And we've got to stop giving this organisation £3.5 billion every year in licence fee money because, frankly, I think it's abusing it.
One last bombshell for you, Kevin.
Oh, what bombshell? I like bombshells. What's a bombshell?
You're going to like this one. Earlier, there was interviews with people who were ex-directors or senior executives of the BBC.
Course, yeah.
A particular gentleman was there, very well spoken, talking about the BBC, and he said, you know, we're very impartial and all the rest of it, or they were.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So here we go. So if we send him a absolute live video, undoctored, of Palestinian, which I have possession of, Palestinian people being executed by Hamas soldiers from 4 different angles, filmed by 4 different people, and then send it to the BBC and see if they'd like to show that to the British public.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't. There may be other reasons they wouldn't want to show that. But you're talking about an organisation, the BBC, that has, throughout the last 2 years or so, more than 2 years, since October the 7th, since the war started, has regularly sort of announced to the public, oh, this is how many people died today, this is how many Palestinian civilians were killed, how many children were killed, women were killed. These were all statistics delivered to them by Hamas. You know, so one would say, well, why would you trust Hamas? So the BBC has been churning out Hamas statistics to talk in terms of the terror and the horror and the deaths. But I would suggest that's not a reliable source. And also, it's a window into the kind of bias that predominates at the BBC in the newsroom. So there's a problem there. Kevin, really good call. Thank you very much. Very good points. Kevin in Dorset there. Keep the calls coming. Shall we listen to a WhatsApp voice note? This is Pete on police diversity.
Hello, Kevin. Do you know, in my book, coppers should stay neutral, just the same as the BBC should have stayed neutral. But just can't help themselves, can they? All got to be pulled in by this bloody wokery and stupidity that's running through this nation, that's helping this rubbish government destroy the country.
Exactly right, Pete. What he said, I agree with him. I mean, the BBC, we talked to Sarah Phillimore about Wiltshire Police. And they're just one police. All police forces across the land, it seems, have this weird thing about LGBTQ rights, like gay rights, trans rights, or rainbow flags, or we painted a cars, rainbow colours, all wearing badges, you know, LGBT badges, all this kind of stuff. Which is, you know, I'm all for gay rights, I'm all for trans rights, but I'm not sure that it's right that the police seem to be showing such sort of blatant favouritism for one section of our community. It makes you fear that they're not very balanced when it comes to other sections of the community. So that's what that's all about. It's not about, like, disagreeing with the concept of gay rights or disagreeing with the idea of trans rights. We're all for that. But the police should be neutral, shouldn't be getting involved. What the hell are they doing at a gay pride event with a big stall? You know, Wiltshire Police stalls, you know, with rainbow lanyards and everything. What's that about? What is that about? That's ridiculous. 03444991000. Let's read a couple of messages. This is from Amanda in London. The BBC has brought shame on this country and continues to do so by refusing to admit any wrongdoing. Yeah, I mean, the chairman today, Samir Shah, this was human error. It wasn't a human error. This wasn't a mistake. This was done deliberately, clearly, to make Trump look bad. Everybody knows that. That's why the Director General and the Head of News resigned. Not because it's a rumour, not because there was, somebody made a bit of a mistake in the cutting room. Director Generals don't resign for that, do they? So we know what's happened. As for who actually did it, you know, that's a grey area. We don't know who actually did that. Maybe it's somebody low down, but, you know, in the end, the buck has to stop at the top. However this happened, it was a terrible thing. And the BBC has shamed itself. This is from Holly in Somerset. I'd like clarity over having a TV licence in order to watch live TV. Since when did the BBC have the monopoly over all TV stations? My understanding was that we pay them primarily because they don't receive ad revenue like other channels. It's Holly in Somerset. Yeah, well, it goes a bit beyond that, doesn't it, Holly, as we all know. The BBC basically wants to dominate the whole media landscape. You know, they take our money and then start setting up all these news websites which ruin local papers. You know, they podcast, everything to kind of screw up commercial broadcasting, the commercial media landscape. So that's why people like us are very critical of them. Or shall we say, we reserve the right to keep a very close eye on the BBC because it operates on public money that we all have to give it, and it needs to be absolutely spotless, faultless and impartial, and it's just not. What have we got here? This is Chris. Great show, Kev. Thank you, Chris. Don't worry, the BBC is getting wing clipped. ITV is still doing Emmerdale. Well, BBC is getting wing clipped, and it's interesting how all these luminaries at the BBC really don't like it. This is a right-wing conspiracy to undermine people who mean BBC harm. No. It's being run by people who keep making massive balls-ups. They keep making terrible mistakes. You can't keep making terrible mistakes and there be no accountability. Someone's got to take the blame. That's what happened yesterday. These two people, Turness and Davey, went because they kept making mistakes and because the BBC has come to be believed to be a biased news organisation. That's not good enough, and they did something terrible to Donald Trump. Simple as that. Nothing you can do about that. Let's talk to Jerry in Burton-on-Trent. Hello, Jerry.
Hi there, Kev. I'm looking forward to such a great show every evening when you're on. It's superb.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends. Tell all your friends.
Oh, I do, and I've downloaded the app. And not only that, I'm looking forward to the day when the team becomes complete again.
Yeah. Go on anyway. Go on.
Yeah, I know. Now, the thing is, I'm sick to the back teeth of this word mistake. If this was on the other foot, you know, the right, left, right, the word wouldn't be mistake. It'd be disinformation. That's what it is. It's disinformation. And that's fundamentally at the core of this, isn't it? Everything's diluted down. As you say, errors. It's not about errors. And I'll tell you where the core of the problem is. It covers so many of the subjects you've raised earlier. It's the DEI, isn't it? It's the diversity, inequity and exclusion policy. And that exists throughout the entire police. It exists with the BBC.
Yeah, you're right. It's a kind of a woke tyranny that infects all aspects of British life. My friend Piers Morgan's just written a book called Woke is Dead. I mean, if only, Jerry, if only. I mean, if woke is dead, why was it 2 weeks ago, for example, just one example, why was I reporting on the National Trust installing in the gents' loos, the men's toilets, vegan tampon machines?
Yeah.
Why was I reporting on that if woke is dead? Woke is not dead. Woke continues to infest every area of British life, including the BBC, right?
Yeah, and not only that, you can't get a job unless you sign up for this DEI rubbish. So, typical BBC, they're full of lefties that sign up for all this thing. So, you're not going to have any diverse opinions beyond.
Yeah, no, it's groupthink at the BBC, and it's wrong groupthink, and what the rest of us think the BBC doesn't want to know. It thinks we're Neanderthals because we're a bit worried about the migrant crisis, that sort of thing. Well, in that case, you're a racist. That's the way they think. Anyway, the whole point about this, though, Jerry, doesn't matter. It's about Donald Trump. They have made an egregious mistake about someone. They've told a really, really serious lie about someone who happens to be the President of the United States, and they're going to pay the price. They deserve this. Jerry, thank you. Excellent call. Let me just read a quick message I've had in. This is from Martin in Aberdeenshire. He's accusing me. He says, "Stop being so woozy, Kev. The producer plus the team who produced the edited film at Panorama should be sacked and blacklisted from all further BBC work. These wokies need to feel pain and job loss like hundreds of thousands who are in oil and gas due to better dead than Ed Miliband." Well, yeah, I mean, I do agree with that, but the point is nobody seems to be able to point the finger at exactly who did this. And if they found out the editor or whoever the hell spliced and doctored Donald Trump's speech, then that person has to go. And if there were 3 or 4 people involved in that process, they have to go. In the meantime, it's only right that the buck stops at the top. This is a serious program. This is Panorama, and it made a serious mistake. It is quite right that the Director General and the Head of News have taken responsibility and fallen on their swords. But hopefully we can find the actual wrongdoers, and then I would agree they have to go. But at the moment we don't know who they are. Quick note from Porrick here. The BBC should be scrapped, but they should be split. Should not be scrapped, but they should be split into drama and news. News should be unbiased and paid for, but the rest should be subscription. Yeah, well, that'd be okay. It's fine. I don't want the BBC to be scrapped. I just want to stop paying for it. The public funding model has to end. I'm the last person who wants the BBC to go. I just think that the whole concept of the BBC TV licence is anachronistic. It's ridiculous. The BBC should, like other broadcasters, live on its own 2 feet. Produce a schedule of programmes and news shows that people want to watch, then they'll pay for it. If they produce a schedule of programmes right now that are mostly crap and biased, totally partial news, then why should we carry on paying this licence fee? Why should we? Let's talk to Carl in Liverpool. What would you like to say, Carl?
Good evening, Kev. Yeah, just on Donald Trump and the BBC. I mean, you mentioned just before then, whoever worked in the editing department and who done that. It shouldn't take long, really, because you should go on YouTube and maybe watch it and then forward it to the end credits.
Well, I mean, who knows, Carl? We don't know how Panorama is set up inside, but someone somewhere did this. It may be one person, it may be 2 people, it may be 4 people. Someone somewhere did this, and I think we know why. And if they can ever point the finger directly at who did this, then yes, they have to go. But in the meantime, it is only right that the bigwigs, that the buck stops at the top. And this is such an egregious mistake that Davey and Turners have both had to go, and that's only right.
Of course, you have to be in charge of an absolute clown show for God knows how long now, Kev.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Davey, it's like it was the straw that broke the camel's back. It's the worst crisis of his crisis-strewn career. But all he did was preside over mess, scandal, crisis. It never stopped. It was ridiculous. And every single crisis and shambles and scandal that he presided over, he made a mess of dealing with. So, you know, he just had to go.
It has, Kevin. The BBC has been a book of horrors for the last few years now. You know, we've been fed lies. This latest thing with Donald Trump, I mean, you know, they keep saying, oh, it was a mistake. I'm sorry, but to do what they've done and clip that and make that the way it was, that has taken time and effort. So it's not been a mistake. It's been deliberately done.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It wasn't a mistake, Carl. Carl, I've got to go. Good call, though. Excellent. Well said. Carl in Liverpool. Here's John in Wellington. It was not an error of judgment. It was anti-Trump left-wing activism within the BBC. Simple as that. That's what so many of you seem to believe. It is Harry Cole saves the West. I think he's going to be leading on this very topic, Donald Trump and the BBC. So stay tuned for Harry Cole saves the West. After that, it's Petri Hoskin at 11 p.m, so stick around. This is Talk. You've been an amazing audience. I've been me. I'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. You better be there.